So I went to a career consultant and we basically sat down over a period of weeks. And there's a great book, First 90 Days and something else. If I can help people in this through executive coaching, happy to as well. But I basically went and got, what am I good at? Boom, column number one. What do I like? And I could be good at it, but I might not like it. Difference. What do I not like? And I'm not good at. So again, well, I don't like it. And I'm not an auditor. I'm not going to work in a bank. Actually, it's not that I'm don't like it. I'm just not good at it. Digital, I mentioned, finance. I went, okay, whatever. And what's the culture that I want to go into? So what do I like? What am I good at? What am I not good at, but want to learn? What do I dislike? And what's the culture? Break it down into those 4 columns. Once you learn all that, you suddenly cave the world of search down into something more manageable. And then you go and look at the industries and the culture and the job adverts that match as much as that possible and go.
Hello and welcome to, I think this is going to be the 5th edition of KJ's Corner now. And with me, I have, let me just read off your headline here real quick. I have the Data Doctor, Irish GPT, which I found as a hilarious little tagline, 6-time Global Technology Award winner and author. And actually, you just recently got an accolade for being, I believe, a top IT strategy voice on LinkedIn. He is an intelligent automation whisperer. And obviously me working at an intelligent automation software company in the past alludes to having this conversation. I have with me Kieran Gilmurray. This guy's an absolute legend on LinkedIn if you're not following him already. I know we were cutting it up before this, but how are you, man? How are things?
Yeah, doing really good. Really, really good. Enjoying life. Lots of changes recently, but then we're going to get into those in a moment as well. So
Sure. Awesome. Yeah. So in case you're tuning in for the first time, this podcast is a little bit different. If you want to listen to Kieran actually on his podcast, he is, I believe it's Druid AI Talks is the title of it, correct?
Yep. druidai.com /talks.
Awesome. And Druid is a chatbot software. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they are a chatbot provider.
Conversational AI. Something different
AI.
With generative AI built into the back end, which now gives you what you might call a chatbot on steroids.
Yeah, which we're all looking for as we democratize automation, and we're going to lead with that in a minute. But needless to say, if you're paying attention for the first time, this is really about hearing Kieran's story. As you're trying to break into technology, you can always talk to the sales gurus. You can always talk to the pre-sales gurus, and they're probably going to give you advice about what's working right now. But what we dismiss sometimes, or just maybe ignorant to, is what are the actual steps and path that they took. So we are going to ask Kieran his story. And the first thing I want to lead with is you are really, I said it before, the intelligent automation whisperer. Can you explain in your words, in the best way possible, what intelligent automation is generally? I know it's a loaded question because there's tons of different ways this is applied, but can you explain to our audience what intelligent automation is and what you do specifically in that space today?
Okay, let me try and explain it in a phrase that
we got time. Fine.
We've got time. Well, let me explain. Will not take long, actually. I divide automation into a couple of different categories. One is the most traditional, which is RPA alone. Mm-hmm. That's what I call the clickety click. And by that, I mean you copy a keystroke, which someone is doing on a keyboard, click, 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 you play it back, job done. That was never truly going to work in a bigger scheme of things when you look inside of a business. What do I mean by that? Well, look, I type, I see, I talk, I interpret, I make decisions, I interact. Those are all of the skills that we have got as a human worker. Mm-hmm. And ideally what we're trying to do is recreate a digital worker that can do as much of the things that we can humanly do in reverse. That's called the thinkety think. So if you can have the clickety click and the thinkety think, you have everything that you need to allow you to replicate the skills that we have as a human worker in a digital worker and do work.
Well, that was great. If you're looking to break into an intelligent automation company, if you just say that, you're probably going to have a leg up, because what I think you did there was really summarize the value, right? Is we know I think we all understand candidly the value of automation, but what you kind of talked about was breaking that down a little bit more, which I think is super, super important from automation, which is there's different ways to achieve it. And I think what you talked about with the clickety click, it sometimes lends itself to either personal productivity or I would say maybe just rudimentary point solutions, but then being able to embed those other technologies in with that is what you're talking about from a full optimized solution. Would you agree? Would you disagree?
I would agree. I would agree and disagree in part. Let me play back.
Go ahead, please. Absolutely.
So ultimately you want to automate as much of a process as you can, and that's not always going to be out of the box. I'll take the process we got, we'll put a bit of automation on top, bing bang bosh, it's now automated, because chances are you're automating rubbish. You really need to look at the processes.
Sure. Yes, agreed, 100%.
But even that, KJ, is a misnomer as well, because very often people go, okay, I'll fix the process. Why are we doing that? Duplicate. Okay, I'll fix that, and I can change the order with automation and whatever else. The bit they've missed is, well, hold on, let's start from business outcomes. What is it that we want to do from a business perspective that allows us to actually achieve our mission in a far better way? What do we mean by a far better way? Well, we're in the digital age. Digital Darwinism is a real thing. If you're not suddenly digitizing and working away that customers want, producing products that they actually will buy through digital channels that allow them to communicate to you in any way that they want at any time of day or night, you're in trouble. So it doesn't matter what the company is these days. All companies are technology companies in one shape, form or other. They're technology businesses. That's the bit they need to remember. Okay, if I remember that and I look at my outcomes, and I was starting up tomorrow morning, well, probably in 99 out of 100 firms, I wouldn't do any of the things that we're currently doing.
Sure.
Therefore, why would you embalm them a bit like a mummy in Egypt? Why would you wrap intelligent automation around the body that's deceased thousands of years ago?
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't you actually use all these amazing technologies to redesign how you actually deliver staff and customer experiences, how you allow customers to engage with you in a multimodal mode, voice, tech, whatever, jump onto chat, jump onto social media, connect all these things together to create the most amazing enterprise that a customer's ever dealt with, so they can have the least frictional process that they've ever wanted or had. But when there's a key moment of truth in that transaction, they can go through to a staff member who has got access to the best technology there is in the market, that suddenly when the customer rings in or WAPs, voice apps in or WhatsApps in or whatever else, bang, immediately they've got the entire customer history sitting there in front of them. There's a bit of artificial intelligence in there that explains why they're calling. There's a bit of artificial intelligence in there that says the most likely next best action. It drags together all the information they need and puts an offer in front of a customer that is resounding. And it's not that about taking away, the brain of the individual, because I want the empathy, I want that human judgment there. I don't want to rely entirely on the machine, but I've taken all the grunt away, and now all of a sudden I can have the most genuine, wonderful conversation with an individual who wants to transact with me in whatever channel or channels they actually want. That's using technology to suddenly hit the business outcome you want. And that's the bit we forget, because automation otherwise is just embalming processes, and then people forget what's the point of the process, or they'll be moving data from A to B. But the data is not the important thing. It's the decision insights, the actions you're trying to achieve at the end of the day.
That right there is, first off, why you are in the position that you're in, is really looking at it. And I've always said this too, is technology is really just the means to an end. People need to know how to actually use it and make it effective. And I think that's the big reason that you are a top IT strategy voice, right? You are actually providing the expertise behind, I would argue, kind of getting people out of their own way and not having automation for automation's sake, but actually what's the business impact behind this? And you actually talked about that with Tony, one of the directors I used to work with at UiPath, where that's what we do, right? I mean, we can show you our software and it's the best screen scraper in the world. No one can challenge us on that. But at the end of the day, right, it really comes down to what's the impact is driving back to the business, because you've just said it, right? If we have it, well, great, cool. But if we forget why we have it, you're eliminating that whole, just like you said, the human, the empathy, and really kind of the inherent knowledge we have around business processes, right? Like I would argue that in order to really, really be effective, is honestly, I would probably call it just to generalize everything, more solution consultant. You kind of need to know how the solution has solved a problem before, right? Or what the problem is, right? I would argue, right? So that right there is kind of, I loved that you went down with that. I didn't prompt you for that. You just had that canned, ready to go. And that is why I think you're an IT, really a top IT strategy voice that I have been following for, I think I've been following you for a couple of years now. I remember I chimed in one day on like a post about intelligent automation, and you're very, very gracious with your time, especially on LinkedIn. And we were having a dialogue and comments. And I think it's always something that is appreciated, probably mutually. Obviously the content that you provide, I enjoy. And I think you do obviously appreciate the reach out, right? I mean, obviously, regardless of what we say about vanity, right? We always love when people interact with us.
No, we do. We do a little bit. You know what I mean? The content's put out there, not for me, it's put out for other people. You sometimes wonder whether people get value out of it or not. And mine is not putting it out there to expect everyone to agree with me. It's to start a debate.
Yeah, there's things that I don't necessarily always agree with, but that's also my lens, and that's growth and having discussions like this. Because I mean, we were even talking about this before. There was an individual you interviewed, Francis Carden, who I have the utmost respect for. But sometimes the way I think like he does look at automation sometimes perturbs me, because it's like, well, you're dismissing that RPA can actually be a benefit, and we're saying like, well, let's help them get to the point of removing the band-aid and actually changing from a digital perspective, right? I just lean more, and I think he's just more like, come on, we've been doing this for 30 years. And granted, I think, from the age perspective, I think at the older you get, the more like, I wouldn't say apathetic you would get, but you understand where I'm going with this. But needless to say, you have really awesome conversations. You have really awesome content. You say some very, very thought-provoking stuff about the industry. But that's not about this today. What I'd actually love to do is go back to the start of your career, because in order for you to get to this point, I would argue you need to really know your stuff first and foremost. You probably would have needed to work in some sort of intelligent automation capacity, digital transformation capacity before, and you really got to understand how it's impacting businesses. So I actually want to bring you back to, I believe it was February of 1999. That is, yeah, not to date you by any means, but I was 6 at the time in February of 1999.
Older than me. Fantastic.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it says here that you were an ICT and digital transformation director at a law firm called Wilson Nesbitt in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Was that a job that you got out of university? And I don't think you immediately became the digital transformation director. So can you walk us through how you got there from university and really the path? Because I think this is going to shape the projects that you did and your work product, and really what you learned is going to shape too. And I don't even need to go through your whole LinkedIn experiences to understand, okay, this guy really knows what he's talking about. But I would say it probably started here. So can you walk us through what that path was from university? I'm going to let you go.
A moment ago, you said we have all the time in the world. We may not, and I may date my own self here. It's not what I did. We had no money as kids. We really didn't. It's not that we were poor, or what I thought was poor, because everybody around me was exactly the same. But we had no money to do foreign holidays, travel, you name it, whatever else. The first trip out of Northern Ireland was off to university to do management science, which is a fancy name for business studies at a college. But when I was there, computers really started to come out. Windows 3.1, DOS, whatever. You go, oh, hold on a second here. This is interesting. You got to share a computer. It's still book time, whatever.
Yeah, I remember I shared computers with my family.
But I wanted to travel. And then I did teaching English as a foreign language and lived in Hungary, lived in Athens for a year, lived in England, taught some of the most amazing kids in the world. And doing that, I was starting to play with databases and work through how do I actually get letters out, market out, and again, back to computers. Oh, this is interesting. And then did a master's in computer science in Queen's University in Belfast. I decided to come back before I was going off to Italy or Egypt. I was going to go to teach English for another year, but I actually met my wife on the course. So I ended up with a master's. So really great value course, that one. Nice. And awesome. From that, I got my first job, because everybody, you just need something to get experience under your belt. And I worked for a software development company, so I was doing that for a while. I really will age myself here. Access 2.0, and then building computer networks, which was actually the more interesting part. Went in from that one, and the guy I was working with actually got me in a job in a law firm. He later left. I became the director of. And then from that, I did everything. I worked goodness knows how many hours a day, and I consumed books. And this is a bit of advice I would give everyone. The starter years in your career are the foundations. You can choose to take it easy, or you can choose to put your shoulder behind the wheel of the vehicle and you can shove. And I went, and I had no money at the time, but I went, something, I'm going to borrow. At the time, it was a lot of money, because we're talking 30 years ago, over £1,200, which put about $1,500 to buy a computer that it was in parts and bits. And I built that and learned how to do it.
Nice.
And a book, now go back 30 years. The book was £45.
Yeah, I mean, they were huge. Yeah.
They were this thick, but that amount of money then was fantastic. But I sort of went, the only person who's really going to invest in my career massively is me. And I did a job during the day. Every night I come home, chapter, took that computer apart more times than you can ever imagine in your life. Took servers apart. This was Windows Exchange come out. Windows 3.1, 95, XP, you name it, was all coming out. Windows servers, 2000, 2003, 2000, all these kept coming out. And I did course after course after course, learned book after book after book, met subject matter experts and pinged their head for questions all the time. And I built a solid base that I could live out of. Learned Cisco, learned how to program Cisco routers and switches, did security, you name it. There wasn't a thing that I couldn't do. And that has stood me in good stead ever since. Could have done nothing. Instead, it was 12 plus hours a day. The oddity is now I do 12 and 14-hour days, and everybody go, oh my God, what the hell do you do that? I love what I do. There is nothing. First thing this morning, 7:30 on a call talking about digital marketing just before this call, talking about writing articles about it. Now I get the pleasure to do this interview. It's just as if you find something that you adore, it's not work, subject to making some clever choices in between. But went and worked in the law firm, and suddenly what used to be the old way of working, and this is the bit that I could always connect the business and the technology outcomes.
And that's what I was about to ask you. Yeah.
It's the same stuff, and I've kept that same process during the year. I never fell in love with the technology. I love what technology can do, but if you fall in love with the technology, you suddenly start producing technology solutions, not business solutions. And I took time to understand that business, which was actually, what are we trying to do? And I met some wonderful lawyers and some vainglorious lawyers. We handcraft everything, but you don't really, because law is based on precedent. And therefore,
it's more like, what verbiage am I adding to this? Yeah.
You're a prompt engineer. You just don't know it at this moment before the phrase was invented. But you're sort of sitting there. Okay, well, how does this work? Well, you've got very expensive partners at the top with loads of secretaries, senior solicitors. Then you've got solicitors. Then you've got whatever. And went, hold on, that makes no sense as a business model. Why don't we use customer relationship management software and automation and analytics and website technology? We're talking about 1980 something, 1990. We're actually too ahead of a game, and I'll explain that in a moment. And there's a lesson in that.
Go on. This is your story.
Why don't we
awesome.
flip the organization upside down? Why don't we have the guy who runs the business or senior partnership team, him and her? Why don't we have very few solicitors, lots of paralegals, give them customer relationship or case management, as it was known, software. We codify everything into that piece of software: probate, law, property, debt, reclaims, repossessions, whatever else, litigation, employment law, so that the customers can get quality service every single time. So it's not based on how hungover the lawyer is, whether we're out the night before the award ceremony. It's not on the basis of, actually, I'm a 2-year qualified versus a 6-year qualified versus I'm just a paralegal out of university and I'm tired today. You guaranteed quality every single time.
Sure.
But you put in the human checks, the human in the loop, even back then. And then you surrounded that with other technologies. We had a website that you could log into. You had to dial up the modem now.
Yep. I still remember dial up. Yep. I still remember that.
Go back on YouTube and you will see it, folks. Dial up the modem. But we had text messages pinging out at 6 points in your case.
Of course.
Here's what's happening. You don't need to call us. If you do want to call us, do this. Emails going out. You don't need to call us. If you want to see what's happening, click here to go into your legal case.
So this was actually customer experience.
This is customer experience.
Okay,
sure. Going back, that's what we're trying to deliver: efficient, quality legal services every time. If we do this right once, if they do a remortgage with us, they'll come back again. If we do a great probate or will or whatever, they'll come back again. If you can capture that value by delivering consistent, high quality service every single time, and that's the product and the communication, then fantastic. And the lawyers in there, initially resisted it because, again,
of course,
you still see the same thing, but technology is going to take my job. It's not. What we're going to do is remove some of the mundaneness, allow you to spend more quality time doing the bit you signed up for and actually engaging with those irritating things called customers. And we're going to give you a plethora of data so that they could see every day how many cases, how productive someone was versus someone else. And the actual system itself was prompting back then. All your reds come up out of date, out of time, out of whatever. And if you didn't handle those one up and escalated to your manager, so that everything was run and regulated and driven and pushed at a pace that was acceptable to the business as well, not trying to drive people into a grave, as it were. But I laugh. I was telling you the story there. We were too ahead of our time. We could do this way back then. And I went in for an award ceremony and went, no, that will not work. The UK award that won £30,000 at the time was exactly what I'd done, just a worse version. It was quite funny.
Yeah, just more money, more funding.
Yeah, you could log in online. It was Calendly back in the day, but different. You could log in online, book your cases, see how available your lawyer was. And you're talking about, I don't know, a couple of years after when you said I started, all this was built out. And then we built it better and better. And from that, I got headhunted because I went into, there was an insurance broker come in and
I was literally about to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was the next bit. They sort of said, well, hold on, you've just transformed how everybody does law in Northern Ireland, practically Ireland as well, because everybody kept coming to see what we were doing. We won more awards after awards after awards. And there's a lesson. Well, here's the interesting bit. I never went up on stage. I went, I don't care, just whatever. Folks, build a personal brand as well as delivering. I gave away, and my boss, it's not my boss, he was brilliant. He said, look, there's another award, an award for websites. Nah, you go up on stage. I can't be bothered. I'm off back to work. I gave away so much brand over the years. It's phenomenal. The folks who started out in LinkedIn have about 1.4 million followers. I have considerably less than that, and it's harder, and I produce more and better quality content.
I would agree. I
And
think I
then
would agree to that. Yeah.
get your own brand. But they headhunted and went, look, we want to see what you've done there, do over here. And it did exactly the same thing, except in that. So, IP-based telephony, the telephony system was basically locked into the back-end database. Every time someone came in, it popped up a screen. On that screen, I could see what you bought, your product set. I could see next best advice and offer. So sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't, shaving off time off the front end of the call, which was absolutely key. We ran data analytics, was the big one then. I got in 11 PhDs in data science and read every single book there ever was about data science in the world back in the day. And that must be, you need to tell me, LinkedIn, I don't even know the dates, way back. But that business suddenly trebled in turnover in less than 3 years by us creating a decision insight organization. Everything at every level was driven by IT and really great data. And our data turned into actual decision insight, so that everyone in that organization at the right moment in time had easily available the decision that they needed to make compared to, before or any other competition. So I could tell you to a percentage how likely you were to renew your insurance or not, how likely you were to buy another product, what price I should offer you at, what credit or debit card rating I should offer you at, how many people were in the contact center. We use simulation analytics and everything else, but just built that out. And a lot of it was just a lot of puzzles and a lot of fun, but everything about the customer experience and the business outcomes kept coming back. And then we find the best in breed, and that doesn't mean the most expensive technology to allow us to deliver that. And all of a sudden we had 1 in every 5 vehicles in the country underneath our insurance, and we had just less people than we had years ago. And it wasn't about less people. The overall number of people in the firm was 6-fold bigger than when I started, because we were so successful. But it meant it wasn't 20 times bigger, so the company actually made money in a profitable way. So but data analytics was the massive thing then. And now we talk about AI and everything else. Some of the stuff, I look at generative AI. And
I think it cycles. I think it's just a circle.
It's a 55-year overnight success story. And someone told me that we can do a churn model. I was saying, I was doing that back in 2003. What are you talking about? But again, it's just interesting. When you say, how do you get experience? You work, you learn, you listen, you read, you engage, you whatever, you make mistakes. And by God, KJ, have I made lots of mistakes over the years. So all of a sudden,
I'm dealing with one right now. I get it. And it's okay. But and I think what you're alluding to there is the importance of sinking your teeth into something to understand it unconsciously, to be able to drive business impact. And that's really what you did. I mean, and I did want to ask you this question. It's a side tangent. I want you to keep going. You spent 10 years at Wilson Nesbitt and then 6.5 years at Hughes Insurance. Do you find it's important to, because I know especially in this day and age, people are looking for bigger salaries and so on and so forth. Would you argue against that mantra to build a little bit more business acumen to help you in your career? I just wanted to ask that because I think it's more traditional to kind of stick around for a long time in comparison to now. But even in my own career, even being 5 years at UiPath, I think I would argue the time I spent at UiPath made me a way more effective sales engineer than it did if I would have just done it for a couple of years and bounced somewhere else. So I just wanted to ask a side tangent on that, because you spent a long time.
Let me say this. It's very personal. So I'm a qualified executive coach, because I believed over the years, just another string to the bow, that if I wanted to create high performing teams, I had to create the best performing teams. And that meant I had to go and educate myself to do that. So what I always say is, what do you want to do yourself? Very often people don't actually understand that conversation. I was coaching someone this morning, says, I must leave my firm. And I went, well, why? And it wasn't the firm at all. It was a relationship they were having with another individual. And I said, okay, how can we solve that relationship?
Sure.
Come up with a plan of action that will get solved. And guess what? Happy now in a business. So be careful about why you're deciding what you're doing. And I'm going to talk about 2 parts in a moment, because the coaching comes into this massively in a second. Why I stayed there, mixture of 2 or 3 different things. One, I was really well treated. In other words, I could have whatever budget I want, I could spend. I was delivering results. So just deliver the business results, folks. Your boss will be happy. They're putting me through courses. The bit that excites me is learning. It's not necessarily cash, but never underpay me. But it was the learning and the growth. And I kept growing and growing and growing and doing different things. And the company was really bought into tech outcomes. So again, I got to spend the money that I wanted on because I constantly delivered. And I remember one time I wrote, I need to spend this. It was a big amount of money. And can you please put 1 million in a brown envelope? Because I was getting so used to just yes. And my team were going, how do you get the yeses? And I was going, because we're delivering business outcomes, because I can tangibly tie that to what we're going to do over here and build a business case back in the day. It's one of the things why courses or people fail. They have brilliant technologies. The outcomes are fantastic, but they can't communicate what is it that the technology is going to do.
That one.
Work that out, folks. Get your numbers. You can't work out your numbers, bring in an accountant where you go. Just get your numbers. Get it translated into language the business understands, as opposed to saying, I need $500,000. Why? Because I need it. Why? I need it. It won't work. But I was enjoying it. Really, really enjoyed it. But then I'd done everything I could do over 10 or 11 years. There wasn't anything in that sector that I could learn. So it was fortuitous that someone came to me and went, right, now recraft this industry. And that's why I left. But I would happily stay where I was growing and being challenged all of the time to allow me to do things. Now the kicker, because I stayed 6.5 years and then that company got bought over 2.5 years. Bloody awful 2.5 years, but I learned so much, it's phenomenal. Why I say the kicker is this. I gave away a ton of brand, folks. Lesson number 1, build your own brand, please God. Number 2 is it's very easy to get settled inside of a company. And I think people are now realizing the choice. Back in the day, there wasn't as many company choices. Why people change now is better choices. They know they can, employment, whatever.
Sure.
But what I do now is I look ahead 2 and 5 years. 2 years is I can't see beyond that because I roughly know what's going to happen in the market. I know where jobs and industries are going to go. I can see where technology's hot. I can see where an industry's hot. That's about right. After 2 years, it's near as damned impossible to actually decide something. I look out 5 years because what am I going to do that's going to pay the mortgage for the next 5 years? So I seen RPA before RPA actually come in. I seen case management before case management was actually a thing. Now it's generative AI before generative AI is a thing. And I'm sort of going, okay, I know how do I know this is going to be big and not just a flash in the pan? Well, look, you sort of know over time, the business outcomes it's going to have. Metaverse, I knew what that was going to do and not, gaming, yes, virtual, billion gamers.
I completely agree with you. Yeah, that's where I see virtual reality. Yeah.
All that, there's definite purposes for it. I can see it a million miles away, but really you're talking about, I want game changing. It's going to impact industries. It's going to impact companies. And when it's in there, I'm going, okay, so I want to bet my horse on that. So the moment it's generative AI, and I started that 9 months ago, not now where you see a ton of stuff coming out from a lot of people, a little bit behind. RPA paid the mortgage for 10 years. It's still there because I think you can use RPA.
I worry on the cutting edge of it, in my opinion. I still think there's plenty of opportunity.
We've only just started. But generative AI is massive. So I look out 5 years and go, okay, what tech is really going to influence business in a big, big way and why? And I can work that one out because of experience more than anything. And then secondly, I'm going, well, what are the industries that are going to go big? So for example, and this is not, if you're in the right position in that industry, you're absolutely fine. But if I'm going into banking, I know there's going to be less branches. I know there's going to be more technology. I know they're going to shrink. I know there's going to be more challenger banks. I know people are going to treat finances quite differently. There's going to be mergers and all sorts. So I'm going, are there going to be a huge number of jobs? And I'm going to go, no, for the right people, yes, the right skills, but not a huge number of jobs. Whereas I look at some other industries and I go, damn, that's going to grow. That one. So I'm going, what are the skills that I need and what industries am I going to go into that are going to go whoosh as well? Cyber, I did it a couple of years ago, and cyber is now struggling a little bit. But I went into that knowing that, that's going to actually work for the next X numbers of years. So what I'm doing is going, I know what's happening in 2 years. I know what's happening in 5. Then I go and get the skills that I need to make sure I'm relevant and valuable and the best in my industry at that. So when I was looking at ChatGPT, Azure, generative AI, 9-10 months ago, every single book, every single article, every single item that I can build, got ChatGPT, goodness knows how long ago, and started playing with that, inside out to learn it, prompting. Every day I use a different generative AI tool in some shape, form or other. I go deep, I go broad, I go and become an expert pretty quickly, hopefully before most other people. And I know what's coming down the line. I find the things that I like, I double down on those. I find the things that I like, but I'm not good at, and I put my shoulder down and learn those, go on courses, read books, whatever else. I find the stuff that I'm not good at and don't like, and I just kill it. I've no interest.
Just avoid it.
No interest in doing it. Do you know what I mean?
That's fine.
And then I'm also looking at the culture of the firm that I'm going to go into. I can go in, a lot of firms want to now currently use me for the knowledge that I have. Great. But, and this goes back to my point earlier on, stay inside a firm and you can quickly become irrelevant. I discovered after 10 years in one of my businesses, I knew everything. I was the best in that industry. I then went out because the industry was going down a little bit. I could see years out. And I came out in the market going, this should be easy. It wasn't. So in those 2 and 5 years, the 5-year thing, I'm planning a bigger future. In 2 years, I'm moving into that industry. I am starting now. So, for example, God knows how many years ago, I wasn't very good at digital. And the choice, you could see the digital market moving up. Digital for, how people were moving online, and digital for personal branding. I spent $5,000 of my own money and went, I'll do a digital diploma in my own time. I'll build out a website. I'll build out a LinkedIn profile. I'll build out a YouTube channel, and I will do it. By the time I had that one done, tick, box done. So every 5 years, I'm doing something big. Every 2 years, I'm doing something smaller. 2 years ago, I was sitting there going, actually, I haven't done my coaching in a while. I'll go back and recertify. Boom, did my coaching again. That cost X, big X. A couple of years before that, I went, actually, what about my finance skills? How good are they when I'm now going to try and build business cases for artificial intelligence? And I went, probably do with a top up there, because again, I like it. Wasn't as good as I wanted to be at. I went to one of the best universities in Ireland and did a postgraduate diploma in business finance. I actually got a student year on it because I got so invested.
Well, I mean, you know how to do that.
all the time I'm going, okay, look out, qualify, skill up. Now, it doesn't mean that the courses are key things. A lot of people get really confused. I need more certs. I give you something I rarely tell people this, but for the sake of this podcast, I will. I did an MBA. I wanted a first. Why? Because I deserve it, I think. No one else gets very few. I got a first. I never turned up to my graduation. What the hell? It wasn't that. It was the learning journey and the skills that I wanted.
Yes.
That's what I want. Yes. Now, I can get those out of a book. I can get those on a course. I can get those by joining communities and learning from some of the best people in the world. So I'll watch what Pascal Bornet does and says. I'll watch what Francis does and says, and I will learn. That's not a course.
I learned a ton from those guys. Absolutely. Yeah.
You follow brilliant individuals. You read everything you can get your paws on. You listen, you learn, whatever else. Every day, podcast, some shape, form, or other. Every day, I've got my Kindle first thing in the morning. I'm reading that. Every day, I'm having an interesting conversation with someone. You need to constantly learn, develop that mindset of lifelong learning, not about certifications and whatever else. It's not to knock them, because some of them are very good. And when you turn up to an employer and they say, well, have you got this, this, and this? You can go, yeah, of course. But you need to work out, what is it that you really want to do? What will you really enjoy? Great. What are you not good at that you could be good at? Fantastic. Go learn. What are the industries that are going to be hot and the technologies that are going to be hot? Okay, face in that direction. What are the cultures inside of those businesses like? So, but like I say this with the greatest respect to auditors. I'm never going to be an auditor because I have no interest in that detail. I'm never going to go into a bank. Someone laughed once, and I don't think it's true. It's where good people go to die. I say that tongue in cheek just for I'm not going to
friends who work at a bank. That's so funny.
Repeat that to them. I'm not going to go there. Yeah. Whereas actually, you put me in a business that isn't a technology business as such, because I've done that, and it's actually put me in a business which really values technology, where technology and I embed online, offline apps, case management, data analytics, generative AI, all that matters. That's going to make an impact. Put me between the business and technology teams and let me drive it strategically in business. I'm the happiest person as can be, subject to not getting underpaid. And I'm reassuringly expensive. And certainly if you're stop investing in my education and growth and learning, and don't allow me to do all the things that's constantly feed this brain, new ways and better ways of doing things, then I'm stopping learning. And if I'm stopping learning, I'm devaluing myself, and I'm not going to stay. I'm going to go somewhere, but make it interesting for me, and I will make it interesting for me. And together we can do amazing things. So KJ, lots of lessons. Do what you love, but just be careful. Learn every day, because if you don't, you're going to get stale. Look out into the market, not just look at what you're doing. Check job adverts, check what's hot in industry. Make sure you're there, and get into the mindset that you are going to have a 70-year career now if you're born today, and you're going to have to learn. So you might as well learn and do something that you absolutely adore.
I don't have anything else to ask you, to be honest with you. I thought, and I'm being completely candid with you, because I think you touched on a ton of things that even myself, you've kind of inspired me. I should probably listen to some more podcasts. I should probably read a little bit more. I should probably but these are all things that I'm so glad that you just were able to just wham, 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 because I think there's a lot of us who sometimes struggle to just get in the door of technology. But really what you said was you defined what we call grit, is really kind of what you said. Is you said, I know I know data and analytics, and I don't even need to ask you. Obviously, all of these skills led you to be, oh yeah, you want to come be an intelligent automation lead so you can help us operationalize what the business wants and what IT can build. It's a no-brainer why you were given those head of intelligent automation roles, which eventually lead to what you have now. And you summarized exactly how to do it. Study up, obtain a love for what you're doing, and just really kind of be so self-reflective and be so self-aware that even if you find out things about yourself that you don't necessarily enjoy, sometimes you can't necessarily change that without that sense of like looking back. And I've heard so many different things about breaking into tech. Some people are like, yeah, build awesome relationships. Some people are like, really, really dig into a technology. To get to your level, I'd argue you've got to almost be a lifelong student. Is really kind of the summary I'm getting here. You know, I'm trying to generalize this as high level because there was a lot of stuff you talked about that I know is going to go for a lot of people. But at the same time, I think if they listen back and absorb, I'm trying to suss out all of those things. Would you agree? I mean, I think really summarizing it is,
you know, I it's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard to work out what you want to do. And the good news is I've had about 6 or 7 careers to date.
I mean, yeah, you've got a ton. Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So whatever you pick, it doesn't mean it's forever. The bit of advice I would give if you're in something that makes you miserable and every day is a pain. And I remember one stage I worked for someone who will remain nameless. I hated it. I vomited before I went out in the morning.
Oh, miserable.
But needed the money. And therefore had to suck it up until my wife got a job. The moment she got a job, I went for another job and got one in 5 days and was gone. But it's not nice being in that place. So even though you see someone, like you see me on LinkedIn, it all looks pretty and whatever else, it ain't pretty, folks.
Getting there's a lot of work, man.
It is, but everybody likes to present the Instagram lifestyle, and everybody then sits and goes, well, look, they're, like AI, a 55-year-old overnight success. It takes time to get there. There's no such thing as it just happened in 24 hours. So I want to take a bit of pressure off people wondering, well, I'm not there yet and I don't have all that knowledge, whatever else, nor did I at one stage. And I still think I have so much more to learn. I don't look at what I learn. I look at what I don't know. And I don't put pressure on myself to sit there and go, oh my God, I don't know all these things. And I don't know how to build out an LLM and what's a tokenization. Who cares? I'll go and learn it.
I'll go figure it out. Yeah. Because
I'll figure it out. There's enough time in the world. If I don't know what, I'll ask someone, whatever else. So I want people to take the pressure off themselves. One, find what you adore. If you can't find it, try different things. Eventually you will settle. Everything finds you at the end of the day if you go looking. If you don't go looking and sit there bemoaning the world and how awful it is, well, that's on you, not on anyone else.
Sure.
That's just fact. But if you want to adore life, and I do, and I want to live every day as fully as I can, for me, learning is my thing. So I just do what I adore, and I dedicate time to that every day. If I don't read for a portion of a day, and it might only be 5 minutes, then I feel it's a waste of a day and it's been a miserable day. So make time for what you adore. Get into that mindset that you have to constantly change. We live in a world that is regenerating all the time. We live in a world that's constantly transforming. The question is, are you?
Sure.
You're not, and the world's transforming. Then it goes back to that digital Darwinism thing I meant earlier on. You will beat the dinosaur. But equally speaking, there's enough time in the world to do everything, because people wonder, there's not enough time. Well, 15 minutes a day is whatever, 100 and something minutes a week.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is, but it's a lot.
6,000 minutes a year of learning if it's only 15 minutes. Get up 20 minutes earlier, go to bed 10 minutes later. Don't take 2 hours for lunch. There's enough time to do everything you want to do, but just go ahead and do it. Take massive action. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. And don't wait for someone else to make your life happen for you, or wait for them to make you happy. It's the one thing I learned. It took me a lot of time to actually learn it, KJ. If I want something to happen, I will make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I don't have great friends and support, but really, if you want something to happen, you ultimately have to own it yourself. And I own my own career.
We're done. That's it. I'm ending it there, because I think that was a absolutely fantastic summary. And I think what was really nice about that too is it's not just applying to technology. You can apply that to anything. I think that's the beauty too. And I think sometimes we, especially in a super digitally transformed world, we're looking for that instant gratification. And with that instant gratification comes a lot of, honestly, like self-deprecation. And you're saying, nah, don't do that. Like, what you're good at and you'll know what you're bad at. So mask your, weaknesses and highlight your strengths. and go chase it. Because and you're right. Like, I mean, I've had, and as we're recording this, right, it's going to be public record by the time that you see this episode, is I was actually terminated from UiPath. And a lot of the reason that I can attribute to really that termination is a lot of kind of what you described, is really kind of leaning into something for myself. And I don't want to delve too deep into details because I love the company. They gave me an absolute awesome platform to do what I wanted. But I really had to lean into what I was good at. And I'm not done with that. And what you talk about the friends and the support is they all reached out to me and they corroborated my thoughts. And they said, yes, continue to keep doing that, keep pushing, keep learning. And once I got that, yes, was I pissed off when I got laid out? Sure, who the hell wouldn't be, right? But in all seriousness, I had to look inward and say, okay, this was a decision I can attribute to what probably happened, regardless of whether I agree or disagree, really doesn't matter. This is the situation that's put in front of you right now. I know where my strengths are. I know it's been corroborated. I need to go lean into that now. And I think it's already been working. I've already had, by the time we're recording this, I've already had like 3-4 interviews now. I've reached out to my network. And just like you talked about, building that personal brand, I think is one, led me to you, led me to having this conversation. And honestly, I think it was more cathartic probably for me, to be honest, like selfishly, but it was such sound advice. And I would say that to anyone too. I completely agree with what you're saying. And I have things to learn too. I'm 29 years old, right? You've got way more revolutions around the sun than I do. You've got that wisdom experience that I think, honestly, us as a younger generation, I would say this, listen to your elders, truthfully. Like, not every single piece of feedback they're going to give you should be, taken as value, right? But if something resonates, figure out where they're coming from and why. And I think it ties back to why you were successful, right? You can
KJ, it was going so well until you said elder there. Yeah, no, look, I use the phrase "be careful who you listen to" as well, because a lot of people talk about it, and for those people who've been laid off, we've all been laid off. Do you know what I mean? That's an inevitability.
Yeah, it's happened to me twice. Yeah.
5 times in my career. I think it's happened twice or something. It was going to happen maybe 3 or 4 times. And you just ran or seen it. And that's a skill in itself. Timing in business is everything.
Now I know. Like, okay, got it.
Well, now, but that teaches you to look. And even if you're happy in a job, still look, check the market, as I said earlier on. Mine is you can decide when you're made redundant. And let's be honest, it's painful. I remember my weekend when I found out through someone else, which was awful. So if you're making people redundant, folks, treat them with a bit of respect. And the message is, everybody else who's left behind, they're watching how you're dealing with it. So if you ignore the people, don't talk because you feel awkward and you're building stories, trust me, everyone else is going, well, if it's my turn, you're going to be a complete something when I'm doing. So again, lessons to be learned there. I can help people with that. But it hurt. And someone once drew it like a death. You go through denial, anger, upset, or whatever. Mine was quite funny because I did all that. Exactly the same as yourself, KJ. And I went, okay, I can wallow in this or I can take massive action. I walked in, when in a Monday, went like, fantastic. What's the check? Got a nice check. It was lovely. I finished the job on a Wednesday, started on Monday, but I started to laugh and smile. Why? Because it gave me a period of time to reflect. And that was the one that I said, my skills were redundant. And I went, okay, let me now go. When I actually went to a career consultant, maybe something for someone here, I went, well, if I want my teeth fixed, I go to an orthodontist. If I want my car fixed, I go to a mechanic. I want my career, the biggest thing in my life, I'll do it myself. Who taught me?
Yeah, like why?
So I went to a career consultant and we basically sat down over a period of weeks. And there's a great book, First 90 Days and something else. And I can help people in this through executive coaching, happy to as well. But I basically went, what am I good at? Boom, column number 1. What do I like? And I could be good at it, but I might not like it. Difference. What do I not like? And I'm not good at. So again, well, I don't like it. And I'm not an auditor. I'm not going to work in a bank. Actually, it's not that I'm don't like it. I'm just not good at it. Digital, I mentioned, finance. I went, okay, whatever. And what's the culture that I want to go into? So what do I like? What am I good at? What am I not good at, but want to learn? What do I dislike? And what's the culture? Break it down into those 4 columns. Once you learn all that, you suddenly cave the world of search down into something more manageable. And then you go and look at the industries and the culture and the job adverts that match as much as that possible and go for it. Mine, I started to smile after about 2 days. People, but you've made redundant. I went, yeah, but I hated that job. I hated, my skills were crap. And all of a sudden I've caught myself on that now I need to do this. And that's kept me in good stead for the last 7-10 years. You learn something, take something positive, not the negative. It's easy to find the negative.
And I think you're spot on. And the positives, even just talking about my experience now, has been the positive was just that outcry from the decision of people who genuinely cared, which says to me, okay, because I know this wasn't a company decision, right? I know that, right? Because if you look at I have a YouTube channel literally showing off the damn technology, right? Like, I don't know why you would necessarily do. So I know that there was other decisions that went into this, and you're exactly right. I had to take the positive, and the positive is, okay, maybe don't be as loud, or if you're going to maybe do something a little against the grain, ask for the forgiveness sooner. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm going to argue against that. We'll end with an argument.
Go ahead.
I was in a company. I'll not say when, because it would date it immediately. And you know me on LinkedIn, and I go out. And why am I on LinkedIn? For a number of reasons. One is personal brand, without a doubt.
Of course.
Number two is I connect to people like you, the best experts in the world who are really good at what they do. So now we've connected. I know I can ask you a question at some point. First time I bought RPA Consulting cost the company $50,000. There's not been a year since that it's cost the company any money. Now that I present on YouTube, now that I do webinars like this, now that I write, my writing, my presentation skills are immense. I go to the best experts in the world, and I'm connected, and I research every day.
Of course.
My companies benefit from that. At my appraisal, and remember, folks, here's the other thing. I heard from someone else in the room and wasn't meant to know this. They went, he likes himself a bit much, doesn't he? And some went, what do you mean? Well, he's on LinkedIn a lot. That wasn't a comment on me, and your loudness is not a comment on you. You and I were in the wrong business.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I think
that's different. Don't suddenly, this is something that I see through executive coaching. Well, and it must be my fault. Actually, sometimes it will be. Suck that up. It might be hard to hear.
There were some things I definitely could have done.
I'll tell you when it is. And it might not. It might be that you're in the wrong business. I knew a CFO a couple of years ago, the best CFO I've ever come across. He had a miserable time in the business. He ended up blaming himself and went, no, you're a wonderful person. You're a wonderful CFO. You're just in the wrong business. So please don't blame yourself. If you deserve the blame, please, yes, take it.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you.
Look harder.
And it's so good to hear. It's refreshing. So thank you. Seriously. Like I genuinely mean that. I'm not saying that for the people listening. Like I genuinely appreciate that. And I think you're right. I mean, because like I said, I had an outcry of 20 plus people, right? That I think is an indication of, okay, maybe I was onto something, right? And I think maybe you're right. Maybe I am in the wrong business. And even if I think about it, right? Like I was talking go-to-market strategy. And if I'm enabling so many people in go-to-market that's against maybe what has been presented, well, okay, maybe I am in the wrong spot. Maybe I should go, and this is just basic from RPA, like maybe I should go join the channel. I worked as a consultant before. So, what I mean? Like maybe going back and seeing the evolution, but I can't take away the life-changing money they gave me, the stock options they gave me, just the really ability to really shape my career. And I'll never take that away. And I will always be an advocate. I literally still have people in my DMs who are trying to use me as a network into the company. And I have to be like, I'm not there anymore, but like I can reach out. And they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, but I even say, I'm like, look, don't use my experience as a deterrent for you to try. Right. And I think that that's something that I've taken away, and hearing all of this kind of substantiates, okay, I'm in a good spot. It sucks now, but I think I'll definitely bounce back. And I think just like you said, I think I'm really going to tackle what I'm good at, which is just educating and enabling people. And I want to continue to do that. And regardless of whatever the role is, because I know if I just take something and I don't look towards down that 5-10 year plan, my family's in that plan. I need to be providing for them. If I take this ad hoc stuff, it's going to distract me from what I've been working towards for all this time. And I've gotten that from you, and it's just, thank you. Seriously. Like, I know I just kind of took this and hijacked it, but it's just like,
no, don't worry at all. But that's tough. You know what I mean? Needing money is a tough one because it can lead you to make decisions. I always sort of think it takes 6 months to find the right job. No, when you've got financial noose around your neck, that's it.
It's a little quicker. Yeah, it's a little quicker.
It can be, you know what I mean? But I sort of say, there's enough jobs out there, and there's enough in your network. Build a good network, reach out to that network. Absolutely. Don't be embarrassed. We've all been unemployed. That'll happen to me again. It's not to be flippant about it, but it will. So if I accept it, it's like everything in life. It's how you react to it, number one. And that's absolutely key. So it doesn't mean you go bed unemployed. Yeah, get out pom-poms and go. It can be actually, okay, let me examine that. And you mentioned a moment ago, if you don't take a moment to take stock, to reflect, and that's a cold, hard, calculated reflection, it may end up going, actually, do you know something? I didn't bother. I didn't learn. I let myself skills. I went into the wrong company. I rubbed people up the road. That might be true. And ideally you recognize that. Or you have a community around you that basically says, look, KJ, you're being an ass. And I'm telling you this. Why? not to make you feel bad, because I care about you. Surround yourself with people
Sure.
that care enough and get that
Absolutely.
manager. Very rare that that'll happen. But if it does happen, okay, reflect, learn lessons from it, and take those lessons forward. Nothing's forever, but learn a lesson, move forward all the time. It's how you react to things, and the action you take will determine your success or happiness or not. Never rely on anybody else to do that for you, or to tell you what you should be doing. Don't look at someone else and decide, well, they're successful, I need to be them. Be uniquely you, but don't make the same mistakes over and over again, or be the same ass. Just try and learn from everything.
I know I said we were done before, but we just kept going on. I'm ending it there because I think that was an absolute piece of advice. I know this is not going to be the last time we're chatting. I can promise you that. In all seriousness, thank you so much for walking us through your history, your story, and just giving us, honestly, some really baller life advice that some of us sometimes never get the chance to have. If people want to follow you on LinkedIn, I think you could just search Kieran Gilmurray, search Robot Whisperer. It's in his line. You'll see that. Also, you do have a website. I believe it's KieranGilmurray.com, and that does lead to your coaching services along with all the other things that you have. Is there any other last words that you'd like to leave these people with before we adjourn today? Because this was an awesome conversation.
I say not. I live the mantra, do things that make you happy. Life's shorter than you think. It's longer than you believe and shorter than you think. So just do the stuff that makes you happy.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. This has been Kieran Gilmurray, Robot Whisperer, Data Doctor, Irish GPT, literally absolute guru. He's a great follow on LinkedIn. He loves to engage with his audience. Do not scoff at that. Getting engagement from individuals, if you are trying to build a brand, is key. He's a clear practitioner of it. I am slowly but surely starting that as well, as evidenced by this. Thank you once again. This has been KJ's Corner, and we will see y'all next time. Thank y'all.